What's going on, guys? Savage Reptiles here. Today I'm going to be going over the acclimating process with blood pythons. I got a message on Instagram from someone. They asked me, how did I get my new blood pythons to like me? And I'm going to be going over that process today as I'm still in that process. So I know a lot of people think that like other species like ball pythons, it may take 2 or 3 days of them acclimating, and then you can go inside of their enclosure and you can have multiple handling sessions with these guys like pretty soon. I wouldn't say right away, but it's a lot sooner than blood pythons. So I just got a new one from Victor Lalou's Reptiles on Morph Market. She came yesterday. I picked her up, and we're still on our second day. Today's our second day because I picked her up yesterday morning. So today's our second day of the acclimating process. And what acclimating means with these guys is entirely leaving them alone. So the process in which you would, essentially just leave them alone, it's pretty long, or at least it feels that way. It's a minimum of 14 days, in my opinion. I've heard some people say 7 is fine, but I like to play it safe. I'm going to go ahead and give my snakes 14 days before I start messing with them and all of that stuff. And even when you start getting hands-on with these guys, handling doesn't necessarily have to mean handling. As you can see, I got my guy Brock just sitting here with me. He's right now he's getting used to my presence. And it's pretty much just like a bonding session. A lot of times I pull him out of his enclosure, and I'll simply just like sit him on my lap just so he can get used to human interaction, just because I don't know how much handling his previous owner did. If any. He was pretty huffy when he got in my possession, but he's chill now. But stuff like this, I'll just have him laying out in front of me, or I'll just have him on my lap. And a lot of times, you've seen in my other videos, I will actually be handling them. But like I said, the acclimating process is very important. Give them at least 14 days minimum before you start doing anything with them. And in those 14 days, I'm not just saying leave the enclosure completely unattended, especially if you're working with a substrate. If your substrate is paper towel or some type of paper or newspaper or something like that, pretty much all you have to do is water changes. That's all you have to worry about. But anything else, since I'm working with actual substrate, I use a mixture of sphagnum moss and reptichip. So since I'm dealing with a thick layer of substrate, I use about 4 to 5 inches. Daily, I'll go in and I'll fluff the substrate so it's not molding underneath. So what will happen is the the top part will dry out, and then everything underneath will still be kind of moist. So I'll go in and I'll fluff it. That way it's not moist on the bottom. And if you leave it like that, it definitely will mold. So I'll go in daily and I'll fluff it. But doing that is also giving them an opportunity to like get used to human presence and interaction and stuff like that without actually bothering them. So daily enclosure checks is also very important in the acclimating process, because you don't just want to leave them unattended in that 14 days, and then 14 days later, this is their first time seeing you or feeling you around them, and it could result in a potential bite. So again, with the aggression stereotype that these guys get, it's not really like that. They're very chill. Brock here, he accepts head rubs. He moves a little bit, but I could never do that with any of my ball pythons that I've kept before. So this is, we're getting there. We're getting somewhere. We're not at the end game of what we're trying to get to. I've seen people have adults that are way more docile than any ball python that I've ever seen. And even Brock here. I had 2 ball pythons that were pretty spicy. One was a Pastavi GHI leopard, and he was a male. But if he was inside of his hide, anytime that I would wave my hand in front of his hide, he'd try to strike it, no matter what. Like, he knew who I was. He knew he wasn't getting fed, but just because my hand was in front of that hide, he was striking every time. And then I had another one named Inferno. He was a fire leopard clown. And boy, was he a firecracker. Like every time, well, I won't say every time, he eventually started to mellow out. But when he got here, like instantly out of the bag, it was like strike back to back to back to back until I finally put him down. And even when I put him down, he was still in that S position to where if I got any closer, he was going to strike me. So again, these guys having that very aggressive stereotype, I haven't seen it, at least not yet. And from my understanding, that only occurs in the wild type blood pythons. These here are captive bred. This guy, I'm not sure what breeder he came from. And I've had 4 people tell me what morph he is. So the fact that those 4 people said the same thing, I'm still gonna maybe send one of his sheds somewhere to have him tested. But they said he's a redhead martyr VPI stripe blood python. I don't know exactly if he's that 100% because one other person told me that he looks like he could be flower. And that was my first time ever hearing that. So just having those 2 different morphs mixed in, I think I'd feel a bit better sending one of his sheds somewhere to be tested just so I know exactly what he is. But before I do that, I'm going to reach out to a couple breeders that deal with some of the rarer morphs to see exactly what he is. I'm starting to believe he actually is the redhead martyr because his head, like the top of his head, is starting to get a bit more red than what it actually was when he first got here. So his colors are definitely coming in nice. Very nice snake here. So I actually pick him up for you guys just so you can see. But these guys are chill. Super chill. Super chill. So if you were thinking about getting a blood python and you deterred away from it just because of that stereotype, just do your research and take the route that I did. I reached out to some breeders to see exactly what was going on with these guys, to see if the stereotypes were true. Everything about care, every single question that I had about 3 breeders break everything down for me. Each breeder, I had a list of different questions. So like the video I did with Elijah, I had 10 questions for him. And then a video that dropped Friday with Ernesto over at Scarlet Society, he also breeds blood pythons. I had 16 questions for him, and all of those questions were different. So that was just me wanting to know as much as I can about this species. So if you're thinking about getting a blood python, just jump the gun, do your research, and reach out to some breeders to see what's going on with these guys. And trust and believe me, that stereotype is not true at all. That aggressive nature is not true. These guys are very chill, and boy, they move fast. And now he wants to come back, of course. See, I could never do this with a ball python. He let me scratch his chin. That's crazy. All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and grab the thumbnail for this video. All right. Yeah, but if you guys ever think about getting a blood python, I highly recommend these snakes. These man, I can't even get it out. These snakes make great pets. And they're just a joy to keep. And in my opinion, they're the most rewarding snake. They're very personable. They have a very strong personality. Again, I don't like comparing these guys to ball pythons, even though they kind of get the same size. My ball pythons never really showed any personality. Like when I kept them, the only personality they showed was hungry. Like they knew when it was time to eat, so they'd come out because they smelled the rats and stuff like that. But any other time, they didn't really show any personality. These snakes will literally communicate with you. And you may not pick up on it right away, but it's something that you'll gain over time. You actually learn how to read your reptiles. And you just have to kind of learn how to know your snake specifically. So like, even though Brock here is super chill, there's a chance that you just might get one that may take a little bit more work, but just because of the workload that it takes, the more rewarding that relationship will be in the end when it's formed. So again, guys, I highly recommend blood pythons. Do your research, reach out to some breeders, and at the end of the day, take care of your reptiles.